Hey, what's going on, everybody? Shaun here. Gross neckbeard guy. Big fat nerd dude talking about movies. Today we're going to be talking about the recent released Black Widow.
I used to have nothing. And then I got this job. This family. And I was better because of it.
The film is directed by Cate Shortland, written by Eric Pearson, Jack Schaefer, and Ned Benson. It stars Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, Rachel Weisz, David Harbour, Ray Winston, and others. The logline plot synopsis is a film about Natasha Romanoff, whatever, and her quest between films Civil War and Infinity War.
Don't make a scene. You made a scene, didn't you?
Be the first to experience Black Widow tonight.
So yeah, I decided to give this one a go. Why would I pay money to watch this? Why would I do that to myself?
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
Why? What have I done? I guess I just like fucking just blowing money on things I don't like. I guess that just must be the answer.
I can't hear you.
There's no other way. I mean, how else? I had to stay home. I couldn't get out to the theater. Luckily, it was available.
Oh!
So I ended up watching it this morning. I guess, if you've been watching this channel for any amount of time, you know that I'm not a big MCU fan. It's not even that I think most of them are bad. I think most of them are just mediocre. And I find it frustrating, like the kind of the hold on the culture that they have. It's like it can be a little annoying because it just dominates conversation. It is created like in the nerd community. It has completely homogenized it and made it awful. It's become a corporate product, and these things are like they're built on an assembly line. It doesn't matter what directors are attached to these the vast majority of the time. I would say like James Gunn, and I'm not even a huge James Gunn fan, but I think at least those movies, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, at least they feel kind of unique to themselves. I could say that Taika Waititi guy, the New Zealand dude, even though I didn't like Thor Ragnarok, at least it has some sense of authorial presence there. But most of them not so much. And this would be no exception to that. This is another very mediocre, subpar. People were saying like, oh, it's a fun action movie. It's not like a great movie, but it's a fun action movie. And I like, a good espionage thing. If I were to say we're like one of the better Marvel movies would be Captain America: Winter Soldier. Like I think it executes pretty well on being kind of an espionage movie. So I was hoping you'd be kind of that kind of flavor, right? And not really so much. It has a lot of interesting things that it wants to touch on, but because it's a Disney Marvel movie, it's not going to get into any of them with any great depth. The characters are more shallow than most of these movies, because there's new characters. There's even one character that is a setup for that Hawkeye's show. Is it Hawkman? Hawk? What the fuck's his name? Is that his name? Hawkman? Hawkeye? The guy, the Jeremy Renner dude with the bow and arrow. He's got a show coming out on Disney Plus, just like all of them. All of the side characters, all the B characters from the movies are getting their own shows. And she's going to be on that show, so this is kind of to introduce her character. And they show you kind of that she's Natasha's stepsister, and she's also one of these assassins. She's also gone through the Red Room training. You got a little bit of the layers peeled back. I think it was Age of Ultron, the Avengers movie, where Scarlett Johansson is talking to Mark Ruffalo, or Black Widow's talking to the Hulk, Bruce Banner, about what happened to her and why she feels less than, why she feels like a monster, why she feels like she has a sense of kinship with Bruce Banner.
In the Red Room, where I was trained, where I was raised, they have a graduation ceremony. They sterilize you. It's efficient. One less thing to worry about. The one thing that might matter more than a mission. Makes everything easier. Even killing. You still think you're the only monster on the team?
Which people completely lost their fucking minds about. Because what you basically find out is that these young girls are forced to get hysterectomies because, you know, having that compromised sense of loyalty, like you might choose your child over the mission, is something they don't like. They don't like in Russian assassin school, especially when it comes to kids. These kids, you know, you got to just take away options. You can't just let them run around willy-nilly having babies and whatnot. Can't be doing it. But anyways, but Twitter lost its mind because they were just like, oh, are you trying to say because she has a hysterectomy, that makes her less of a woman? So what they're saying is, like, the way that Natasha feels about herself, the thing that she has to get over, the thing she has to fight through and just realize that it actually does not make her less of a person, is not what was being endorsed in that scene. They're not endorsing that mindset. They're saying, this is her trauma, you fucking goons. But anyways, let's just talk about this movie even briefly. I don't really have a ton to say about it. It's super mediocre. It's super underwhelming. There's some fun performances. I think David Harbour is pretty fun. Scarlett Johansson, who's an actress that I don't like her as a person. Anytime I hear her talk about something, I'm just like, oh my God, shut up. Except for like just basic normal things like actors are supposed to act. You should be able to take on whatever role you want. I agree with that stuff, but I've heard her speak about other things. Or I watched the most insufferable interview. It was her and Chris Evans. They were doing, like, Variety does these actors one-on-one things.
Boom! Oh my gosh, way to rub it in.
It was like a couple weeks ago, and I just was like morbidly curious. And I ended up watching the interview, and it was the most like shallow, gross, narcissistic like couple people I've seen speak to each other in a while, especially Chris Evans.
Well, every couple of months I decide I'm done acting.
That guy's a fucking sociopath. Like, you could see it in his eyes. You could see that there's just nothing there, you know? Just awful. But that's neither here nor there. But I've always liked her as an actress. Especially one of my favorite kind of horror science fiction movies of the past few years, Under the Skin. I would definitely recommend that. I think she's a decent actress. A Marriage Story, she's excellent in that. And she does okay here. I mean, she's just not given a lot to work with. Like, this character has a lot of potential to be something rich and interesting and really talk about some stuff, especially about, like, even if you wanted to get more of a feminist angle, even if you wanted to, like, you know, women in the workplace type stuff. They don't really do much with that stuff at all. And even this whole thing with the Red Room and training these female assassins, there's tons of interesting threads, tons of dark stuff, because basically it runs parallel to, like, human sex trafficking, child sex trafficking. That's kind of what the analogy is to a certain degree, by stealing these girls and turning them into child soldiers and female sexy femme fatales and stuff like that. Like, that's kind of what's happened to them. And they don't do anything with it. Like, Rachel Weisz's character, she is like their pseudo mother. Like, David Harbour, Rachel Weisz, their characters like their pseudo parents, because back in the day when they were children, they were, you know, sent to Ohio to do some nefarious mission for the Kremlin. And so they were like their pseudo parents, but because the mission lasted 3 or 4 years, And the girls were so young, they actually did have like an attachment and a bond. They were allowed to be children. They were allowed to act as if they're in a family. But you find out that Rachel Weisz's character is a doctor, and a lot of her research surrounds like behavioral modification and control, which is something that Ray Winston's character uses. The big daddy, the pimp.
People on this planet.
Oh, stop it.
Don't tell me to stop!
Uses against like the girls in this training to like kind of break their will and to control their behavior, etc., etc. There's like hardly anything with that. With Rachel Weisz is one of the fucking architects of this, and there's not even like barely a batting of an eyelash about like her role in all this and the implication. They just like, oh, she feels bad about it and she wants to change her mind. That's fine. We'll just move on. Now you're just part of the team, girl. Awesome. Because they do like this fake out where you think maybe she betrayed them. It lasts maybe 2 minutes, 5 minutes before it's revealed. No, that's not the case at all. Everybody is just as good as you think they are. David Harbour probably has the most clear arc of all the characters.
Natasha, I can't save us. I need you to know that I'm sorry. I pledged my life to a cause. You know, I thought I was being very brave. Possibly the bravest, but I wasn't being brave. I was a coward.
I mean, him and Florence Pugh, they have like this connection about like wanting to reconnect and really wanting to fulfill the role of a father figure and her be like his daughter and have his support. And that they go through that, and I think that stuff's pretty well executed for the most part. The stuff that does work the best in the movie is just the character conversations, not even anything that necessarily has to do with the plot, but I would say these actors all have good chemistry. They're all like good actors. Whether or not they're doing their best work here is another story, but they're all good actors. They have a good chemistry as a kind of a family unit.
Here's what's gonna happen.
Okay, reunion then, huh? And, I want to say something right off the bat. You haven't aged a day, huh? You're just as beautiful and as supple as the day they staged our marriage.
You got fat, but still good.
I just got out of prison. I have a lot of energy.
Please don't do that.
It would be more interesting if that just felt like it was more baked into the cake a little bit better, where it felt like those themes connected with the themes of the Red Room and training child assassins, and what does that all mean? And what does that all mean to Natasha internally? And it doesn't ever feel like it really gets there. And then, in typical Marvel movie fashion, it ends in like this giant CGI nightmare scenario. And it's just like kind of mediocre action. It's one of these things, like they hire these directors. They get somebody that's like Cate Shortland, who's been around a minute, but hasn't done anything huge. A couple years ago, came out with a movie called The Berlin Syndrome, which I've never seen, but I had heard about. And she spearheaded the show Smilf. What else has she done? Lore, this movie from 2012. She's done some television stuff in the early 2000s, but she's, you know, her movies are more like indie stuff. And this is what they do. They find these interesting directors, these left-to-center directors. They're a little off kilter. Maybe they have something extra they could bring it, and they just fucking suck the life out of them. And, you know, that's tad insult to injury. They don't even direct half of these movies. Like, half these movies, you look at the runtime, you could probably say, like, well, maybe not half, maybe like 40% is like set pieces, right? Action set pieces. They have all that stuff done in previs before they even hire a director, sometimes before they even write a script. You know, so it's just to be able to like kind of organically fold your style and your sensibilities into the whole thing is almost impossible. They make it fucking impossible. But I don't know. It's not. I mean, I guess people are liking it though. You know, the audience score, even Metacritic's like a 67. With Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score have it at 80%. The audience score is 92%. So, you know, I think the Marvel crowd is coming out for it. They like it. Also, you got to remember, they're coming off of pandemic year. People, I think, are just excited to have something new to go see in the theater. Because it did okay, like box office wise in the theater. But Disney's also touting that this did really well on their premiere platform. So if you have Disney Plus, you can pay $30 to have access to Black Widow. And you get to keep that access too. I think that's forever. You get to keep it forever. Well, as long as you have Disney Plus anyways. But analyst says Black Widow's streaming success spells big trouble for theater chains. So, let's look at it here. Big trouble. Big trouble in the old theater chains. Secured the highest pandemic era opening to date, ranking $80 million. The ScarJo-led film outpaced predecessor F9, which F9 kind of started to tank, and I think that was, honestly, part of that was the controversy with John Cena and his weird apology and all that stuff. It really, I think it left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, because especially even people that go see Fast 9 are probably going to be more like middle America types, like really like salt of the earth type people, just your general audience. And that story blew up enough where your general person, your average person probably heard about it, and that's going to leave a fucking bad taste in your mouth. Because as much as the media would like you to believe, most people are not cool with authoritarian communist regimes. They're just not. They're just not. So for the Disney Plus here, let's see here. However, the entertainment giant reported streaming revenue for the very first time, and the reasons why were obvious, which I'm not sure. They also reported on Mulan, because they did this with Mulan. It was the first one that they did this premiere access thing with, and they tried to say that Mulan made like $40 million or something like that. However, the entertainment giant reported, according to the film, it generated $60 million on Disney Plus, less than theaters, but a significant haul amid Hollywood's new normal. This is a watershed moment for the industry, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so they're basically saying that you could see a shift. You could see a shift. I think there's one more story that was like shareholders market watch. After Black Widow fails to lift AMC stock, retail traders are trying to become their own Avengers. So even though it's done the best, it's not enough. And these big tentpoles are just not bringing out people. I think people really have gotten used to, probably more than maybe some are thinking, have really gotten used to watching shit at home and not going to the theater at all. Like, I do what I can. I try to support my theater. I'm dying to go support my local drive-in, but they're not fucking playing anything. Like, if I'm seriously thinking about going to see fucking Fast and Furious 9 and the Forever Purge just so I can give them $10 this Sunday. Like, just to help them out, because they're definitely struggling as well. But I don't want to watch Black Widow and Cruella or fucking whatever else is coming out this weekend. Like, because they, at the drive-ins, they just kind of rotate in and out the big stuff that comes out all season. So they don't play a lot of smaller movies. Every once in a while they do, though. So I will give credit where credit's due to my local drive-in, my local-ish drive-in. But yeah, so it's just not doing too well. AMC buyers hold. They're trying, man. They're trying to hold off the end as long as they can. But, I go to the movies occasionally, and while there are more people, it definitely has not bounced back like it was back in the day. It just hasn't. Even if you go on a weekend, it's still not as full as it used to be. And I live in the South. I border on Georgia, but I go to mostly Georgia movie theaters. And even there, it's pretty low key. It's a lot deader than it used to be. But anyways, so I did not love Black Widow. I didn't expect to be honest. But I thought I'd give it a shot, And I feel this happens to me all the time with these fucking movies. Everybody's like, actually, it's okay. It's a pretty good action movie. You just want to turn your brain off. Well, I did want to turn my brain off. I did want to watch a stupid action movie.
Don't do it! This was fun! No!
And this just did not meet that very low bar for me. It's not even that it's poorly made. It's just so mediocre. It's so fucking forgettable. You just could not be bothered to give a fuck. I watched this thing like an hour ago. I'm fucking, the movie's just falling out of my brain. Like I got my head like this, and the thoughts are just falling out like a waterfall. Like get out of me. But anyways, all right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you guys later. Check out the links in the description. All of the Zoobox stuff you can follow, and leave a comment. Let me know. Did you like Black Widow? Are you a Black Widow stan? Is it my intense hatred of the nerds that leads me to this opinion? You let me know. You tell me off. You set me straight, buddy. All right. Goodbye.